Hello rivals, how you doing today? So I play healer on pretty much any game that there is a healer. I'm a healer main on, going back decades. If it's Battlefield, if it's Overwatch, whatever kind of game it is, I like to heal people. And I would like to do a tier list of people like this one for the other characters, but since there's only 5 healers or support characters, I've been playing those extensively. I thought I would do a tier list to help you decide which one might be the best for you. Of course, everyone is going to have a different list. You can have different viewpoints. Obviously, the main idea is that balancing is a key component here in this game. And one of the most interesting things, it seems like every character is kind of a combination of the Overwatch characters. For example, we're going to start with my number one pick, but first I want to give some criteria for how I'm ranking these. And some of these are close. There's going to be some situations where one is going to be better than the other in certain aspects. But the number one criteria that I'm looking for, because we are talking about healers, healing is the priority. This isn't like Overwatch. You can do, I like to do DPS Moira on Overwatch. It's a lot of fun to play that way. But really, if you want your team to win, you should be doing constant healing. There is a time for DPS, and you do need to be well rounded. So we are going to look at other aspects of these heroes, but number one priority is healing and healing output. You want to be giving constant heals. You don't want to have to be in a situation where someone's on their deathbed and you don't have the healing because of a cooldown of some sort. So we got healing as a priority. Second is going to be evasion, because even though the meta is usually you're going to be standing far back from the action and healing from a distance, you need to be able to have evasion. Every character should have some kind of evasion, because if you get dived on, if for some reason you lose the fight and you need to fall back, you need to have some evasion. And then I would say DPS is the least consideration, and then we have to think about some of the special abilities, some of the special perks that each character has. So my number one, I guess I would say maybe not S tier. I don't know if any of these heroes are going to be absolute S tier. We're going to see what they add over time. But probably my main right now would be the Rocket Raccoon. Now, again, you may have a completely different opinion, but this is my reasoning. So, Rocket Raccoon, he's one of the easier characters to play, but what I really like about him is his healing. He's got the lowest cooldown on any of the healing. He has a huge output. You can just sit there and spam his volley. I consider him to be a combination of like Baptiste and Ilaria with a little bit of Kiriko, because unlike Baptiste, you don't have to actually hit direct hits. You can just spam the volley and it has some kind of tracking. It's not direct to the target, but the tracking is more or less what you can rely on for long distance healing. You can see that the healing kind of bounces off of the walls. It has a habit of making it to the target without too much emphasis on aiming. And there is a little bit of a reload speed, but you can just spam constant volleys. I've gotten close to 40,000 heals multiple times with this character, because you have to think that the most likely situation is you're going to have both teams fighting on the objective. You're going to have all of the players in one area, and you want to have that wide healing. You want to have the biggest healing output for a wide space, and this is the guy for that. We also have to consider he does have secondary healing. Most of the healers do. He does have the little auto healing device that you can put down that does the area of effect healing. He also has the little revive station, which if someone dies, they'll get an instant respawn wherever you put it down, so you can put it down close to the fight, get your people right back in, one at a time, of course. And it also gives you armor drops for overhealing. But really the second thing I want to talk about, why I really think he's number one, is he's got just the top tier movement. His evasion is incredible. Some of these other healers, they don't even really have any evasive tactics, but Raccoon, he's incredibly small. He's got a smaller hitbox than the others. He has a double dash, not just one, but two, and it has a pretty fast cooldown. You can do a double dash into a wall run, and the wall run is so quick. and you can even walk on the ceiling, jump off, and levitate. It's the best possible evasion, maybe not out of every character, but certainly out of the healers, and it's just such a fun character to play. You can scale up the wall, go to high ground. If somebody needs healing up there, you can camp up there, give healing over the ledge. So the evasion combined with the healing makes him, I think, the absolute best all-around healer. And the DPS is good too. The damage is good. I would say you have good damage, great healing, and just top tier evasion for this type of hero. So you can honestly just sit back in the back of the map, keep spamming your volley. I've had many situations where I was the only healer on the team. Obviously, in competitive, you're probably going to have two of each, probably two tanks, two DPS, two healers, but I think that for crowd control healing, he's the one that you want to go to. He has the smallest cooldown. Everybody has a little bit of a cooldown, but he has the smallest cooldown out of everyone, and I think he's the most well-rounded. Has some cool abilities, has great movement, very balanced, so I would put him as my number one healer. Second to him, it's a kind of a close call between, I would say, Loki and Luna Snow, and I'm going to say why I put those two right underneath Rocket Raccoon. I would start with Luna Star. Luna Star, a little bit easier to play than Loki. Loki, more of an expert character. Both of them have one thing in common, which is one of the quality of life improvements. I would say the hit scan healing. In other words, the fact that, like in Overwatch, you have to always switch between healing or DPS. If you want to do healing, you can't usually do DPS. Like if you're playing Baptiste, you can heal and you have good healing, but you cannot heal and do DPS at the same time. You always have to switch. With these two, with Luna, your DPS and your healing is built in, so you can pretty much shoot indiscriminately into a crowd as long as you're hitting your shots. If you hit a teammate, you get a heal. If you hit the enemy, you do some DPS. And the abilities are, you have sort of the Zenyatta orb. You can put the little snowflake on one of your teammates, and as long as you're healing someone else, then I think the healing is shared with that other person that you put the orb on. You also have not the best evasion, but one of the cool things you can do, you can freeze an enemy if you hit them. So if you have a tank that's pushing you, trying to dive on you, you can freeze the tank, also freeze them during their ultimate if you manage to hit them, and it gives you some time to get some evasion. And the ultimate is absolutely incredible because it's probably, I would say, the best ultimate for the healers, because what you can do is switch between overheal and a DPS boost. And supposedly if you spam it, then you can get both at the same time. But this is very much like a Zenyatta ultimate with Lucio, but for like 10-second duration. It lasts for a very long time, and you're not unkillable, but you're basically unkillable. Outside of the other team spamming their ultimates on direct hit, it's going to be very hard to kill your team if they're all inside of the area of effect. This is not as well rounded as the Raccoon. I also forgot to mention that the Raccoon does have his ultimate gives you a damage boost in the area of effect as well. So what you're seeing, a common theme is that all of these heroes have a little bit of offense and defensive capabilities, or boosts, I would say, for the team built in. So Luna Star isn't necessarily the best for boosting your team's DPS outside of the ultimate, but I like the speed of her attacks. She gives pretty good constant healing, also constant DPS, so she's kind of like a Kiriko. You can just sit back and imagine that you're throwing kunai, but you're also healing at the same time. Would put her in my A tier, and I would put Loki right next to her. Very similar, except he's a little bit more of an expert character. He's a little bit harder to use, but he's a lot of fun too. Same style of healing. He's a little bit slower. I think he does a little bit more damage and a little bit more healing on each hit, but he's only got 10 shots at a time. Of course, you do also have the clones. I believe the clones can help assist you doing DPS. Maybe, I don't know if they can heal your teammates, but you can always swap between the clones. Very good for evasion. You can just put a clone in the distance and teleport. It's not exactly like Symmetra where you can teleport your teammates as well, but you get to teleport. You get to fake the other team out, and you can also convert incoming damage into auto healing, which is useful. The ultimate is very good because this is again an example of combining Overwatch heroes into one character. You get to use basically Echo's ultimate, but the cool thing is as soon as you steal a character, when you counter swap, I've got examples of when the enemy team pops an ultimate, you can actually steal that character and counter and use their ultimate. So an example would be, I steal Adam Warlock, and my teammates die to one other ultimate, and I get to revive them, and then I get to go back to using Loki. As long as you don't die in the ultimate, you'll be good. Another example, I think I took, I think it was Mantis that I stole, and I was able to overheal my team. If you're at a disadvantage, you can actually just steal that character that's about to nuke your team, and yeah, you can do some amazing things. You get an ultimate right away as soon as you swap. So you can just spam the ultimate and then dive out if you're able to. So it's a lot better than Echo's ultimate because you get instant charge and it lasts for a good amount of time in that character. So the fact that you can do the teleportation, kind of sit back, chill, kind of just hit scan, snipe, long distance, medium range. Loki's a lot of fun, but again, he's a little bit of a slower paced character at times. His output's a little bit slower, and you've definitely got to be able to hit your shots. So that's why I don't know if I would put him ahead of Luna, but I would both put them in the A tier. And we have to have a B tier, I think. So just going to be honest, I think in the B tier, it's going to be Adam, Warlock, and Mantis. Now, again, there's some interesting qualities from all these heroes, and this is not factoring in the team-up ability, but I'm not going to really talk too much about that here because this depends on do you have coordination with your team, and there's definitely some interesting possibilities once you factor in the team-up, but I'm just going to talk about the base character abilities. So Adam Warlock, he's actually really interesting. He's got decent healing. I mean, he can heal seemingly without even having to look at who needs healing. You can just snap your fingers and whoever needs healing. I think the way it works is whoever is closest to the direction that you're looking at, or whoever needs the most healing, you can just snap your fingers. You get pretty medium healing, about maybe like 40% of their health gets healed. So if someone is really low on health, you can just give them that emergency healing. You can also do the chain healing effect, which also negates damage across multiple teammates. So you can just tag 2 teammates and they're going to get healing over time. And the ultimate is just the ultimate mercy. It's the ultimate mercy ability. You can revive your entire team, and also when you die, you can cocoon. You can choose where you want to respawn. It's only once per life that you can do this, I believe, and that's also very helpful. You can get yourself right back into the battle, maybe even give yourself an advantage by where you place your character. The DPS is also a lot of fun. I think you can charge up projectiles and just spam them. They do quite a bit of damage if you hit headshots. So he's another character that is, I would say he's a lot more if you want to do just kind of do autopilot healing for the most part and just do some DPS. His evasion is not very good, so that's another reason why I would put him on the B tier, because his healing is good, but there is a cooldown. It's not the worst. I would think that would be maybe, I'd say it's between Adam and Mantis, the cooldown on the healing. But his healing is good. I just think there'll be situations where, if you're on a cooldown for healing and there's just nothing you can do, then situationally he might not be the best hero to use. You would probably want someone like, again, Raccoon. You're always able to heal. There are some situations where, again, Adam, if you need emergency healing, he will be good, but it's only good for maybe 1 or 2 players at a time. I personally think he's in the B tier. I think he's good situationally. Easy to use in terms of healing, but you would really have to be smart about how you use him. And I think he's fun to play, but I just think that, healing is number one, and evasion is number two, and he doesn't really have any evasion. And he's a lot like Mantis. I want to talk about Mantis now. Mantis is actually interesting because you do have the ability to give healing buffs and you can do DPS buffs, which, if you can combine those two at the same time, this character is, again, a lot like Zenyatta, but you can do like multiple DPS orbs at the same time. The only problem is you have a cooldown based on how much DPS you do, so you need to be hitting critical hits in order to recharge your ability tokens, and everything that you do requires your ability tokens. Healing, DPS, you can use the sleep dart, which is kind of like Luna's freeze ability, but everything requires tokens, and I don't think she's as good in terms of DPS as Luna, but if you're good with hitting your shots, she does have some DPS capabilities, so she's another little DPS hybrid. You're going to be mostly doing DPS, and she does have auto tracking as well. So her auto tracking healing only second to Adam's. She can heal from a distance without you having to have direct hits. You just have to look in their direction. So there's definitely a time and a place to use her as well. Some people may enjoy using her, but you do have to very much micromanage what you're doing. This is, again, why I like the Rocket Raccoon. He's got 1 star, very easy to use because you can just sit there and spam one button, hold one button down. With Mantis, you really have to be paying attention to who needs healing. Maybe just put some DPS orbs out there, but you always have to be restocking your heals. So in an emergency situation, again, you're only going to be able to spam a couple of heals at a time before you're just going to be dead in the water. So I don't like that. Again, I mean, there are situations where sometimes you just can't win the fight. There's always going to be some kind of balancing. Rocket Raccoon, he can keep healing, but he doesn't always get direct healing, so there could be a delay and you could get killed there. Really, the system is balanced. The characters are pretty balanced, and it might just depend on what kind of people you're playing with. Again, it might depend on, if you're playing with your friends, you will find a combination that works for you, but this is my perspective. The ultimate that she has, that Mantis has, is very similar, but I think it's worse than Luna's. I think it gives you a speed boost and healing over time, but again, I think Luna's ultimate, it's so hard to kill Luna, and it's so hard to kill the team if you get everybody in that little circle, and it effectively does all of the things that Mantis does, but at one time, and it just has such a good, at least in my experience, maybe I'm missing something, but I think that Mantis, she does have some capabilities, particularly, again, her DPS buffs, but I think that she's not the top tier healer. I think she's one of the lower tier healers, at least in the beta. But again, different players may have a completely different perspective. I think they're all fun to play right now, but I think my go-to would be Rocket Raccoon. I like to just sit there, spam healing. It's a good character because, if you're tempted to do DPS, that was kind of the problem in Overwatch. Some people just want to do DPS and not do healing. He's a character you can just sit there, hold the button, you're sitting back and relaxing, you're chilling. But you do have the opportunity to do DPS if you need to. And these other heroes are very good for if you want to just sit there, heal only when necessary, and or not have to worry too much about switching back and forth. Just shoot into the crowd, make sure you're hitting your shots. But Luna and Loki, I think they're really good too. And there's a time and a place for Adam and Mantis, but those are a little bit more tricky to use, and I think there's some drawbacks because, again, I want to be able to heal constantly. You never want to be in a situation where your teammates are near death. Sometimes it's going to happen. In the thick of it, ultimates are going to come into play, and people are going to get taken out. But, again, I really like Raccoon. I want to stick by him because you can just sit there in the pocket, spam your healing, it's going to make it to the target, especially if you're just giving constant healing and everybody's grouped up, which is the way I think, in tough situations, you want your team group up, pick your shots, team shoot, and you want to have healing going to everyone simultaneously. So, I think this game, 6v6, you got probably two of each, but I think really the healers need to be doing that constant healing. I am a person that thinks that, you gotta have some DPS as well. So it's something to take into consideration depending on what your play style is. But if you're straight up healing, this is how I would rank them. And yeah, you do have to think about evasion as well. And and ultimately, the cool thing about this game, the team up abilities, there are some situations where you get some really interesting dynamics, like the Raccoon. He can get on the back of the tank and, just kind of hit glitch behind him, which is cool. So, I don't know, this is my tier list. I put Raccoon in S tier. I put Luna, Loki, A tier. I put Adam and Mantis for B tier right now, but I could be wrong. There could be another way of looking at things. But if you like this tier list, then let me know. Give me a like. And I might consider doing, once I experiment with the other characters, I might do another tier list for DPS and maybe one for the tank as well. But Marvels is really good. It's very interesting. A lot like Overwatch, definitely an Overwatch clone, but it might also be the Overwatch killer. Not to say that Overwatch hasn't kind of done that to itself, but Marvels is actually a really good game, so, let me know what you think.